So somebody recently asked me on one of my social media platforms, why does my paintbrush drip all the time? And there's a couple reasons, and one of them is cheap paints. I mean, cheap paints have low resin content and have low solid content, and they're usually not very viscous. They're usually really thin, and so cheap paints are going to have a tendency to drip a lot more than a good high quality paint. So along with a high-end paint, you do need a high-end brush. One of my favorite brushes, this is a Brook. It's a handmade brush by Premier in New York. And you really do get what you pay for. You can go to the dollar store, buy a dollar store brush. The filaments or whatever it's made out of, they're probably going to start falling out that same day. You're going to be picking them off your wall. High-end brushes, the manufacturing process, they're made to and they're built to last sometimes a lifetime if you take care of them properly. But Premier's high-end brushes, all their handmade ones in New York, they're made out of DuPont filaments. DuPont filaments hold paint a lot better and release paint a lot better. You're less likely to drip using a high-end filament. So I'm going to talk a little bit about technique too, along with the brush itself and the paint. So I always just take my brush, I dip it into my paint, get it loaded up, I pat it on the side. Now, if I carry it from my brush right here to my wall, I'm pulling on the paint and the brush, and what's happening is the paint is wanting to come off the brush as I take it to the wall. So one thing I teach my apprentices is you load up your brush, and as you're taking it to your surface, wherever you're going, you're consciously or subconsciously rotating that brush. Your paint's never gonna drip as long as your brush is rotating. It's the same thing holds true with a roller. As long as that roller is actively rolling to the wall, you can sit here and talk all you want and that paint's not gonna drip. So load it up and twist as you go to cut in. Right, so I'm gonna give you, one more tip when it comes to, the technique when you're painting, why your paint might be dripping from your brush. So I got my brush right here. And you also gotta say, there's probably, this is a Premier Brook. It's what I use on the interior. Corona, the Corona All-American is an absolute amazing brush. I also like the Worcester Alpha. So there's a couple. Worcester and Corona make good brushes too, along with Premier. But here's another tip. So when I'm cutting in, if I'm cutting in like this, I'm always cutting in, the paint on the top is not going to drip, but there's actually paint building up on the bottom of my brush right here that's gonna drip. So I'm usually cutting in one direction, flipping over and cutting back in and finishing my cut in to keep the paint from dripping. So my brush is actually rotating from top to bottom when I'm doing my cut in like this. But the longer you wait, so when you're doing your cut in, the longer you're cutting in like this, the longer you're waiting, the more odds you're gonna get a drip coming off the bottom of that brush. Switch it over and come right back, finish that cut in, rotate your brush to your bucket, and you're not gonna get any drips.